Is this music better, Said?
It reminds me of Austin Powers. I like the song. Great.
Yes, me too.
Nicola, whatever you're clicking, everyone in the room sees it. So if you're clicking through the flashcards, they move for everyone else because you've got the facilitator power. Welcome, everyone. What's your energy level today? I don't see Rachel in the room, but this is her template for the check-in. So shout out to her for putting this into our library. Are you depleted? Are you kind of like deflated balloon, or are you ready to fly? And we know Said is deflated because it's super warm where he is. So we've got a bit of everything. Who's leading here? Who's that? Ben? Yes. A round of applause for Ben, everyone. Because he's ready to fly. Awesome. So take what you need today. Whether you're feeling ready to go, whether you're feeling a bit depleted, you're feeling a bit low on energy, what would you need to make today and the next hour more productive, more impactful? Lots of energy there, lots of creativity, lots of focus. All right. Some hope, some joy. I love that. Fewer more air conditioning, says Said. Okay. Keep that in mind. All right. Hitting the music to welcome everyone to our 1, 2, 3, 4th Learning Playground session. It's the second one for today. We just spent an hour brainstorming lots of good ideas with Kat here, who's in the room with us. My name is Anna Maria. We haven't met before. I did the Butter Community Project, and very, very excited to bring you this 7 event series in the month of June, where it's all about celebration and exploration of practical applications for play, playfulness, and creativity in our work. Whether we're facilitators, learning experience designer, maybe we're employee experience designers, working in L&D, workshoppers, consultants. This is our time to deep dive and look into ways we could actually use playfulness into our sessions. And I'm very, very excited to welcome Nicola with us today. And before I tell you a bit about her, I want to mention that the session is recorded. We're making all our events available on YouTube so that other folks can learn with us as well. And Nicola, thank you for accepting my invitation to be with us today, despite not feeling at your best health-wise. Let's make the session fun with you. Thank you so much. She is a coach, a host, an entrepreneur, and has 10 years of client management experience alongside 5 years of running her own games-oriented team building events. And also, she is a certified life coach for the past 3 years. She is an associate certified coach with the ICF and has also a diploma in transformational life coaching. So a coach from A to Z. And she has brought a very interesting topic for us today. We're talking about accountability and how do we make it fun and engaging using games. So Nicola, thank you for hosting us. The floor is yours. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for that awesome introduction as well. Could you help me with the toolbox and the slides for me, Anna Maria? That'd be awesome, or Cheska. But yeah, anyway, before we start, because I saw a few people varying energy, and I quite like a bit of movement at the beginning of my sessions. So just to get a vibe on people's like accountability and how good you are at getting things done. Like if you're like, I always get things done, I don't even need someone to tell me what to do, it's jazz hands. If you're like, I'm okay, I do a bit of it, it's like arms out to the side. And if you're like, oh, I'm really procrastinating and I need someone to make me do everything all the time, it's a big arm stretch. So if you're super accountable and you get it all done, jazz hands. Out to the side if you could be slightly better, and this if you need to be pushed out the door. Let's see those arms moving. A few hugs, I like it. Amazing. Right, I hope it's sort of energizing some of the energy in the room. I know it always feels good to get those arms stretching and that chest open. So as Anna Maria said, I'm going to be talking a bit through accountability and play. It's going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour because obviously we can't catch all of your specific situations, but hopefully you'll take some things away from today and be inspired. I've already had an awesome introduction, so I don't really need to say much more, but this is me. I'm Nicola, and I really care about finding the motivation for my clients to get them closer to achieving their goals. So finding the things that make them accountable and in an enjoyable way is something that I really care about, and we're all slightly different. So finding that thing really matters for you because it's not always a one size fits all. So first things first, because I am slightly competitive, I want you to make a bet with yourself, or a prediction, we could call it, if you're not as competitive, but 3 of them. So 3 predictions for the next hour. They don't have to be big, they don't have to be smart, they don't have to be clever. I did have some examples on the next slide, but I'm aware can I change it to the next slide just to do the predictions examples first, Anna Maria? Is that okay?
Whatever you want to.
If I click this arrow, how do I go back to my slides?
Do you see them now?
I don't. Can I close the poll? Is that okay?
We
and then open it again. Oh, you can see them. As long as you can see them. Okay, so this is just some examples because you might be thinking, God, what is she on about? So something that you might think you'll learn. Maybe you think the doorbell will ring and you want to try and come up with a clever one. But just 3 predictions for the next hour. And if you could put them in the poll, which now I'm hoping I'll be able to look out for you. Thank you. That would be awesome. So we'll be checking back in with those at the end of the hour. But as I said, don't worry if they're not going to come true or not. Predictions or bets are a nice way of us trying to learn something about ourselves and be aware of in the moment. So I'll give you a couple of minutes. Great, I love that you're outing us.
One night in a disco on the outskirts of Bristol, I was cruising with my favorite gang. The place was so boring, filled with out-of-towners touring. I knew that it wasn't my thing.
Thank you so much. I love that background music. The person that wrote, I'm going to learn new things to do on butter. I've already learned so much in the last 9 minutes. So thank you, Anna Maria and Jessica, for making it so much fun. Some really awesome predictions coming in here, right from like eating cookies, falling asleep, bad Wi-Fi, photobombing. Thank you, everyone. I'm looking forward to seeing how many of those come true. So I'm going to close the poll in the next 5 seconds. So press enter. There we go. Great. So we're here today to talk about accountability. So I don't know if anyone wants to come to the space and give us like a stab at their definition of accountability, just so I can help you make some of those predictions come true and you have the opportunity to speak in front of people. Sometimes people need time. That's okay. I have come up with addition. Oh, hello, Ben, Boy Wonder.
I'll take a shot at it. All right. And the timing of your session's awesome because I'm struggling with this with a team right now. But if I were to define accountability, it's a commitment to take the next right step. So that's what I'm working with right now. Please help me improve that.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that definition. And actually, when I started thinking about it, I was like, I say this all the time. What does it mean? So yeah, commitment to taking the next right step, and right's an interesting choice of words as well. Thank you so much for that. So hopefully we can help you with some thoughts. So the definition I've come up with is like being responsible for what you do and being able to give a reason for it. So kind of understanding why you're doing it, and that can obviously really tie into that accountability and why it even gets done, because you want to, hopefully. I'm doing the digging. There was some sort of criteria that meant that it existed. So having some clarity. So like you were saying, in terms of like the next right step, committing to it. So like understanding what it is, why you're doing it, and following through with it. And then consequences, and they don't actually have to be negative. I know consequence can sound quite negative, but they could be a positive consequence to an action you take. So an outcome as a result of you taking that action. So hopefully we'll all agree that's roughly what accountability sounds like, what we're familiar with. And obviously the session is about play. So what is a game? And again, weirdly, game is another word you hear a lot. And then when you're challenged to think about what it is, it's like, what is a game? Because it can be anything from like tickling someone through to like chess championships and the Olympics. Like there's so many different ways that games are interpreted. So I've come up with I've landed on a structured form of play. It's up to you if you want to agree with me or not. We can have a debate about it in a second. But one of my heroines is Jane McGonigal. So she's an author and a game designer. And she comes up with the games needing a few key features. So you need a goal. Is it like you're saving the princess? Are you defeating the big boss? Voluntary participation. Like obviously, if you wanted all the money from Monopoly, you could just go into the box and take it. It's your choice that you spend 3 hours trying to like buy property and sell it to other people. So you're voluntarily getting involved. And then feedback. So feedback, obviously in this sense, it's not as dry as it sounds, but it's like points, it's collecting coins, it's having a progress bar, like all of those things like leaderboards, they're all information as to like you are making progress and the game is happening. So I don't know if any of you have noticed something here, any of your eagle eyes, but I think these are very similar. So you can see that with both accountability and with play, you need to know where you're going and how to get there. You're actually committing to doing it. And also there's like results that you are seeing as a result of taking that action. But like, why is that relevant and how can we use that? So just to give you an idea of how powerful games are, like in the US alone, 180 million gamers spend 13 hours a week playing. And that's not even like the extreme gamer level. Like, so the people that really play games are doing about 45 hours a week, and that's 5 million people. So that is a lot of hours of gaming. And one of the reasons that they're doing that is games really help us achieve flow state. So if you're familiar with flow, it's when you've got like 100% focus. You've lost track of time and you just want to keep doing that thing. You don't want it to end because you're having a good time or you're getting progress. They're also volunteering a lot of unnecessary hard work. That's a lot of hours, like 45 hours a week. Like I don't know anything I do for that long apart from maybe sleeping. And they're doing it for free most of the time. And they care about the outcome. So there's lots of forums, there's loads of wiki pages. There are so many parts of the internet you might not even be aware of where people are dedicating, showing off their prowess and their achievements with games and lots of tips and tricks on how to be better at them. And they're learning new skills. So especially in video games, like there's such a huge learning process in terms of how to be really good at a game. And it's really addictive to like notice that you're getting better and doing something. So you can hopefully see like why games are so powerful and how people are really engaging in them. And the other thing that Jane McGonigal says is games make it easier to take good advice and to try out happier habits. So it's a much safer space to start being pushed or challenged or having harder conversations with when it's framed in more of a gameful way. So one key feature is actually missing from my definition of games I gave you before, and I missed it out on purpose, and it is this one. So rules. Weirdly, rules are the things that make us want to play games. So if you think about Articulate, where you can't say the word on the card, or any chance-based game, you have to roll a dice, or maybe you're limited by like picking up something from the chance pile. Like those are all limitations that challenge you and encourage you to engage with the game. And therefore think a bit more strategically and like learn what you're capable of and try something out. Anyone surprised by rules being the fun part of games? Kat's like, no, I know. Love it. Okay, so as we're talking this through, I'm like wondering if there may be some gameful rules that you're aware of, like, oh, maybe I could start implementing this. And I know when we talk about games, it can start to feel a bit abstract because you're like, oh, I can't just get them to roll a dice. But maybe you can. And by the way, I have done that before and it can work really well, but everyone's situation and context is totally different. So I don't know if anyone wants to offer any thoughts they've initially got, but I have got another slide to her keep talking, but give me some water break. Back in, right, let's go Ben, then Daisy.
Just thinking of some rules that come up commonly in my space, especially around ideation workshops, is no criticism of ideas is a rule I might think of, or we always have a rule that when someone shares anything in an ideation session, we have a round of thunderous applause. So,
I love that.
The few that came to mind.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. They're really, really great suggestions, like that sort of spectator supporting thing, and it can really go both ways, right? Like it's nice to do something positive and it's nice to hear something positive too. Daisy, what were you going to say?
Yeah, it's not that much a rule, but it's a little trick I also use with clients if they have to decide between two decisions. I tell them to flip a coin, because before the coin lands, you already know how we want it to land. So just saying, that's a way to get clarity very easily.
That's awesome, Daisy. I love that as well because it imposes that deadline, doesn't it? Like you've got 3 seconds. Mm-hmm. That's great. It's a great shout from Daisy. And I mean, coins, dice, like, I don't even like getting someone to put something in their hand. Like there's loads of different ways you can introduce that challenge. Great shout, Daisy. And Paul, what was your comment?
I would share maybe more of a process. And I find if I play a game or an activity multiple times, seeing what what issues arise, and then trying to bring in some rules or guidelines that maybe help to prevent that issue if it's an undesired issue from happening again.
Yeah, no, that's a really great shout as well. And even I think the language is really interesting, right? So thinking of it as an issue or a problem or like some annoying hurdle, but it could almost be like the sort of like the mini boss of this level. Okay, was this person, how are you going to defeat it? I know I might be going a bit far, but like kind of seeing these iterations as opportunities in a playful way, and how you can come up with different ways of solving it. They're awesome. So it sounds like you're already like well ahead of me on this. So what I wanted to introduce you all to is this concept called play personalities. So the lovely Dr. Stuart Brown has identified 8 different play personalities, and some of those things you were all just talking about tap into some of these types of personalities. So I've got them all up on the screen there, and I wanted to bring them in because they can create some inspiration, because as I mentioned, there isn't just one way of being playful, right? Like we all access play in lots of different ways, and it can be very specific to you. So one person's idea of play could be like torture for me, but there could be another way that I really enjoy accessing it. So just having a look at these, I want to go onto the next page. And so we've got hopefully we'll have a poll now just to see which kind of player personality do you think speaks most to you. So we've got like the jokers, they might be making things silly, like maybe dressing up, or it could be speaking differently. Someone who's competitive, obviously we hear about that maybe the most with sports, so like setting targets, being the best. Kinesthete, so is it movement and action that it does it for you? If you're explorer, like liking new experiences and learning things. Director, I think is an interesting one. So literally directing people, kind of having a sway on how things unfold. The collector, so I put up like Mario here, if anyone's a Mario one, because Mario goes along and collects coins. So this idea that there's lots of different ways, like material or otherwise, of things you can collect. Storyteller, Dungeons and Dragons is a classic if anyone's familiar with that. So putting your characters in a scene. But doesn't have to be D&D. It could be as broad as your imagination lets you go. And then artist and creator, so like literally, as you can see in the drawing, like drawing things, or like having visuals, which might be more playful for you. Got some explorers. I love explorers in this group. It's exciting. Some jokers. Amazing. Don't know if the final 6 people want to pick. Some deliberation happening, I think. So just whilst people are deliberating, like with my coaching clients, like I look to include the most useful motivator for them, because obviously that's what helps keep them accountable. So to give you an idea, like I've created Dungeon and Dragon character sheets when people are making CVs. We visualize quests, we collect success tokens depending on what it is that we're trying to do, and we like work playfully together in the coaching space, in a way that holds them accountable but also keeps it enjoyable and relevant to what they're wanting to achieve, which is why this feels like really useful to be aware of what makes people tick. Fab. Okay, I think those last 3 people are obviously eating the cookies and being photobombed, so I will let's end that poll there. Fabulous. Amazing. So I'm curious, did anyone know already about play personalities? Did the 11 explorers know that they were explorers? No, it's a head shake from Kat. So, yeah. Oh, how exciting. Okay, well, hopefully we're smashing some of your predictions and people are learning something new already. Ace. So why did I ask you this? Because, as I mentioned at the start, being like games have a lot in common with accountability. So it's like, how can we tap into games to tap into accountability and encourage people to do things? So I think it's time we had a discussion. If I could turn on to the next slide, which I can't seem to do. Thank you. So yeah, I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. Obviously, you're all a bit more familiar with the play personality. You are. Have a chat about why it resonates with you, how, if at all, it manifests into your work. Maybe you wish there was more of it. And then looking forwards, like now that you've got more of an awareness, like how would you like to do it more? So we're going to put you into groups of 3. And I'll let Anna Maria and Cheska do their magic, and then we'll come back and hear from you how it went.
We are spending 8 minutes in groups of 3 or 4.
Amazing. Let me know if you've got any questions as well before you head off, or we can come in and check on you.
All right, enjoy.
Thank you. Great. And was there any ideas generated on how to incorporate your play personality in future work? Or maybe it's something to bubble away on. Maybe just some jazz hands. Oh, there was a bit of share confusion. Oh no, sorry about the confusion. Great. Okay. Well, thanks, Paul, for sharing that. It's really useful. So that can I find, I don't know if Kat, because I feel like you've been nodding along with me with play and stuff. I find that sometimes play can feel quite elusive and you can kind of like lose your way sometimes with things. So the reason I was introducing them was because if we can make things feel more playful, they can be more linked to accountability in terms of like having that format. And it was an optional tool of like, these are the ways that some people connect with play. So how could they loosely be introduced into different scenarios in order to make it feel more gameful and therefore inspire people to feel accountable to what they're doing? That was the idea. So I'm really sorry if that wasn't very clear, but hopefully that's helped a little bit. And yes, I agree, AC, with the neuroscience of what happens when we play is super valuable. I am not a neuroscientist. I've read a lot about it, but I'm not going to go into it. But I highly recommend that people do, if they're interested, if they haven't already, read a bit more into it. So Stuart Brown, who I mentioned earlier, has got a book called Play. He also has done a TED talk, and it's a really like nice introduction to the concept of play, why it's lasted so long, why animals do it, even though like they're sort of, you know, they could get killed by being distracted and they still play. And then also Jane McGonigal, who is like, as I said before, she's sort of on my super pedestal for me. So she's done a book called Super Better. And she's also got an incredible TED talk about how games can benefit us massively. So yes, so thank you. So anyway, I encourage you to keep doing some extra reading around this because we're really just touching the surface. Fab, would you mind please sharing my slides again, Anna Maria? Oh, and Peter Gray as well. Fab. So I did actually also want to give you a bit of a case study. So I don't, if any of you are aware of UK news, back in 2009, there was an expense scandal, and about there were some leaked documents that basically revealed that MPs had been illegally filling in their expense claim forms. And the reason this is relevant to what we're talking about today is because in 3 days, The Guardian launched this sort of crowdsourced game where 20,000 people participated to help find all of these dodgy expenses. So all of these really quite boring documents. There's over 5,500 PDF files of illegally expense claim forms for 600 different people. Massive undertaking for one person. And instead, because of what The Guardian did and by gamifying it, it was like a huge amount of work was done for free by members of the public. And just to give you an idea on the participation rate, like Wikipedia gets just under 5% participation rate. So out of all the people that visit Wikipedia, under 5% contribute. For this Guardian crowdsourced game, over 50% of people were participating. So it had a huge participation rate. And as a result, there was a lot of positive change that happened in terms of cracking down on people that were illegally claiming taxpayers' money. So how do they do it? Like, they made it feel like a game with all of these classical game things that we're talking about, and therefore people felt inspired to be accountable to doing the work that was given to them. So you've got that voluntary participation, and you've got the feedback. So things like they had light up buttons on the website when people logged something. They had leaderboards, both short term and long term. So you didn't have to be the best at it to just see that you were making an impact. Obviously, it was being reported about in the news, so you felt part of something much, much bigger than you. And there was like the data. So the data gave it a lot of context in terms of just how many receipts were being found, how many expenses had been like claimed. And then there was the fun parts, like there was a duck pond that someone had paid £1,600 for and expensed. So there were like those odd like nuggets of like, I don't know, like found this golden token in this chocolate, in this like pile of rubbish that, oh my gosh, is a ridiculous expense. You kind of got the recognition for the ridiculous stuff as well. So there was lots of different ways that they made it really interesting and relevant to people. So as you can see here, I've just put it in a table just to like break it down a little bit more in terms of like, what was it that they were getting from it? How was that achieved? But then also just linking it back, I had like a duck pond too, Ben, a free one. Just linking it back to the play personalities, just in case, again, if it's useful. So it's not going to have ticked all of the different boxes, but you can, maybe you'll think that there's some more here or less here. But so for example, the explorer, you're having a new experience, you know, you're participating in like this political scandal, and maybe that's nothing to do with your usual day jobs. You can feel like a bit more of like a detective or an inspector. And you've got that storytelling element. You've got the director. There were loads of forums where people could like tell people what they'd found or get other people to help them with certain things. You obviously have the competitive side. You've got loads of leaderboards and ways that you're contributing as well. And then why is that linked to accountability? So I've just put it in here in terms of like having this feedback and feeling part of this collective are all things that really inspire us to show up and to do things. And this is how they made it possible within this remit of the challenge. So hopefully that real life example helps you understand how it can be brought to life. I appreciate that maybe you're not running a website, but you know, whether it's in your session or whether it's like across a series of weeks, there's loads of different ways that people could be engaged with, both through either play personalities or different game metrics, and being aware of what they're part of and how they're making an impact. Does anyone remember that or have any comments on me bringing this case study in? Great. I guess that means it's a unanimous, fascinating intrigue. Fabulous. Thanks for the thumbs up. So this has been a bit of a whistle stop around what games are and how they can link to accountability. So we've covered a bit on like goals and outcome, and so like kind of having that clarity, knowing where you're going. Also the voluntary participation. So it's really important that like people buy into it, like that they want to show up and be there, and also having that feedback along the way. And then the fun part of the rules and those limitations that you can introduce, like the coin flip that Daisy said, which is awesome. And then using things like play personalities as inspiration for like different types of play and how they can be weaved into what you're doing in order to make something feel more gameful, so that people feel more accountable and therefore more likely to show up. And then pulling from the case study, so this awareness that there's, achievements can be recognized both large and small along the way. Being part of a collective is a huge one, like recognizing you've got that impact and how that is shown, and having the recognition and think. Ben, you've thrown me with your question. Go on, tell me, what is your question?
The small achievements stood out to me because I think it's blocking a team I'm working with. Do you have any recommendations on techniques for helping a team break a challenge down to smaller achievable parts? I'm thinking of a activity from Liberated Structures called the 15% solution. Just curious if you have any other recommendations for helping a team break something down to a small next step.
Yeah. So at the moment, what's happening at the moment, like, is it that they think it's too big, or
I think that's it. I think they're overwhelmed. They're like, oh, we want to. You're asking us to switch to modular nuclear energy for our energy source in the steel industry. That's not what they're being asked to do. But they see it as this grand. We have to make steel green today, and when in fact the solution could be reducing less energy, becoming more energy efficient, finding new ways to do that. So I'm just curious if you happen to have any techniques or tools to help with that.
Yeah, no, I think it's such a useful question as well. I know I come up against it as well, this sort of like overwhelm, even with like, how do we save the planet? Like, what can I do? Like, it's just, it can be constant in our day to day. So see Paul's put on the SMART goals for definite. For me, and like there's so many different ways of coming at it, but for me, especially with my game hat on, one of the things I just think can be really useful is changing the language. So, you've got like, okay, level 10 is changing to this modular nuclear energy, like that's the big boss. And like we're either working backwards to like, what would level 9, 8, 7, 6 and all the way down to 1 be? And I guess like kind of, yes, you've got that overall goal, but like remembering that you're not at level 10, you can't, you haven't got it depends how much you want to gamify it, but you haven't got the tools or defeated the mini bosses or like got the allies and all of those other mini things that you need in order to be ready for level 10. So just bringing them back to level 1 as much as you can, like with that different terminology, is something I like doing. SMART goals is obviously a much more like well-known like process in terms of being that specific and measured and breaking it down, but it depends how much you I encourage you to change the language. It's something I enjoy doing more.
The video game metaphors are resonating with me, and I think they might with this group too. So you all give me lots to think about. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Do you know? I don't know if you play D&D, and I know it's not for everyone, but I think it can be a really like powerful awareness of how they have made this world, in terms of being aware of your character, what you stand for, like where you're wanting to go, and then how you interact with the group around you, and that you need to have interactions in order to get stronger, in order to get to the next part of your quest.
Oh, perfect. Because
if you work with people into D&D, it's really awesome. If you don't,
I mean, that works great. I am in fact an 8th level druid, so thank you.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you. Okay, liberating structures, wicked question can help too. Yep. Daisy, do you want to add any more on your liberating structures?
it was more common for Ben because he already know liberating structure, so he also knows this, probably knows this one, but have not think about it in that sense.
Okay, great. Thank you for adding that. Anna Maria, I love this, and this is another really awesome like actual coaching tool as well. So the letter from the future. Oh, it's so much fun. Do you want to add any more like verbally to it?
So I run this in Butter, of course, and I go full blown experience with the music, like a tone. Oh, what's that tone? Oh, there's a transmission that we're hearing, and I click a flashcard, and then I take them through that story, and then the letter is interrupted. And so I create the whole narrative of and release beats by beats. Where are we? It's a letter from the future. That's the future where steel is green and we save the world and the humanity. And here's what we did. And then to do the transmission interrupts. We don't see. We're now all excited. What is it that we did? So then we go in a bit of a mural brainstorming, planning to kind of roadmap. And I think it's very linked to what Paul said. This reverse engineering.
Yeah.
Coming
Were you
back.
the storyteller, perchance?
Explorer?
Okay. But yeah, fair enough. I mean, you can still be a bit of a storyteller too. And then yes, Charlotte. So having each person identify 3 big picture actions to get from start to finish, mini milestones along the way that you can celebrate. Yes, and that last bit in terms of celebrating, I think we're all so quick to be like, oh, that's done. Not what's next, and like, oh, it's just not that big. But actually, noticing those milestones is really powerful. So again, Ben, to your question, like, notice the steps that are taken rather than dismissing them, I think as well can be super useful because they are necessary to get to where you're going. And I think too often we don't notice those mini milestones and how they contribute. Yes, thank you. So of course you can be more than one personality. I definitely don't want to put people in a box. And I think like, we all have like inspiration from lots of different ones, and there might be days where you lean more into one than the other anyway. Fabulous. I love all of these suggestions. Is there any more questions or suggestions that people want to bring up? Okay.
This just turned into an idea jam.
I love it. No, but I think this is
which was Kat's prior session. Everyone's like brainstorming mode. Ben, you can do this, you can do that.
That was my prediction. I would steal all the good ideas in this session.
Yeah. But I guess then like linking it back to accountability as well, and it's maybe like to use Ben's example because it's helpful. There is this like overall goal, but then like being aware of like the small things you need to do for the other people in your team. So obviously like the collective side of things, but then sorry, I've just lost my train of thought. But making it feel more accessible by making it feel lighter, so it's not really overwhelming, so therefore making it more playful can then like support with that accountability so that the overall goal doesn't feel as scary because you've got that focus that games can really lend to the session because you've placed them either in like more of a storytelling vibe or like more of a silly one or whatever it is, without obviously over egging it so much. Like it can be a touch of play. It doesn't have to be something that is all consuming, because I know that can also get tiring in itself. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, so I know we've done a bit of discussion, so I think maybe just a couple of minutes just in terms of what are you going to take forwards or what's got you excited in pairs, if that works for people. But before we send you into the breakout rooms, I really love the suggestion from Anna Maria, who I think maybe you got from Daisy, was it?
Daisy.
Yeah.
I learned this from Daisy. I pass it over to Nicola because community. We'll all learn from each other.
Yeah. So just going to give you a minute of reflective, playful silence before we go into the breakout room, so you can kind of collect your thoughts, see how you feel about it, and then be ready to share with the person that you're going to be paired up with. Thank you.
We ready for breakouts?
Yeah. Do you reckon like
We're
2?
spending 5 minutes in groups of 2 or 3. Enjoy.
Fab. So, because I'm competitive, I asked you to make some predictions at the beginning, and you're going to get 5 points for each prediction that did come true. So, wondering if you could recall your predictions. I realize they're in the chat. I don't know if we can get those back easily, Anna Maria, but yeah, no, it's a no. So you're going to have to rely on your memories. There's also a memory game. Isn't that fun? So, and if not, you can bluff, because that's also a skill needed in games. I want to know, did you get 0, 5, 10, or 15 points? So if you could just put the score you got in the chat. And of course, assuming we're going to meet again, will you beat your score for next time? So Niels, I like it. So it's oh no, not you put 12. Cat, well done, Cat. Well done, Daisy, for being honest. I love that. It's very important. And keep the scores coming through. And Daisy, in answer to your question, you will be getting the slides, so you will be able to access them afterwards. Fabulous, a few 10s. It's great, some nice high scores. Well done, people, on making your predictions come true. So one of the reasons I really like predictions is whether you were right or wrong, you always learn something. And it can be quite a fun way of just gamifying things for yourself and hopefully keeping you a tiny bit accountable to making those things come true. But then also for next time, maybe making more informed predictions if you want to get them more right. And then also trying to obviously beat your score in this case, because we put points to them. Anyway, just a bit of fun. So my name's been Nicola. Thank you so much for joining us today. You can find me at Game Plan Life Coaching if you want to talk more about play, if you've got any more questions, or if you want to debate any more of what I said today around play personalities. I'd always love to hear from you. But equally, if you want to talk more about coaching or play workshops, I'm always here and happy to talk about it, because I think games unlock so many different things, and it's a lot of fun to see how they can be used. So yes, thank you so much for contributing, everybody. And thank you for my shout out. So Anna Maria, I don't know if you've got anything to add, because if not, I've got like a 10-second game.
Hey, this is a surprise even for me. What is it?
It's not much. So my favorite way to end calls, because it's always just like, oh, bye. I want everyone to say goodbye, and I want you to name everybody in the room, and then I want you to tell them. I want you to tell them to either be more silly or be more storyteller. Just incorporate your play personality into it. So say goodbye, name everyone in the room, and wish them a playful week, basically. And I'm going to hang up the call. Well, can I do that? I want to end the call in 10 seconds. You've got to do it in 10 seconds.
You can.
Is this in audio or in chat?
Audio. If you can type that fast, I'm impressed.
Goodbye, AC. We'll be exploring together. Thanks for your email.
Goodbye, Kat and Nicola. Thanks for hosting today.
Bye, AC.
Bye.